it possible
Yes.
to cure an alcohol addiction and a sugar addiction by simply closing the gap? And if so, can you help me begin?
Well, why does one closing of the gap look so different to you than the other?
That's why I'm here.
Well, the reason that we ask that is because the closing of any of those gaps is a vibrational closing. It's not about what you do. And so the thing that happens, and we talked about this just a little bit ago, that as you have been living your life, you began activating beliefs before you could even speak words. Just as you absorbed what's going on around you, you come to assumptions and conclusions based upon the behavior that you are observing. And in every moment that you are doing that, you're getting feedback from broader view that really has a clear picture. So what happens is, as you make an assumption, whether it is accurate or not, as you perceive something, and you offer a vibration about it, now law of attraction responds to that vibration. So that's why people say, see, I told you it was true because I thought it was, and I talked about it, and I read about it, and I joined a group about it, and now it is happening to me. And we say, well, all you're saying is, I gave it my attention, I activated a vibration, law of attraction responded to the vibration, as it always does. That's why we don't get too excited about anybody saying, well, it's true, because there are so many things that are true that you don't want to activate in your vibration. Just because it's true is not good criteria about why you should give your attention to it. So the reason that people, first of all, most people who are experiencing the label of an alcoholic addiction or a drug addiction, most of them are sensitive people who are living in an environment where they cannot endure the gap in their vibration. And they're not knowing about law of attraction. They are not remembering who they are. They've sort of been talked out of it because they've been banging around with others who have forgotten also. And so they are not following their bliss. It seems incredible once you begin listening to us for a while, and certainly from our perspective, it is amazing to us that anyone would have any difficulty understanding that a thought that feels better is a better choice. That good feels good, and that not so good doesn't feel so good. But you've programmed yourself to believe that if it's true, that you should give your attention to it. And so at very early ages, you think about what you want and you have a feeling response, and you think about what you don't want and you have a feeling response. And in all of that, you begin to mute your sensitivity to the way you feel, to the point that you begin to think a lot about things that don't feel so good, but then that just begins to feel normal to you until you parlay it. In other words, if the longer you live life, the more you want, and the more you beat the drum of where you are, the wider the gap gets. So the longer you live, if you don't begin to understand about this closing the gap and law of attraction, then the more uncomfortable you feel. And there are people who are born with such intensity, usually teachers, they hit the ground running, they're wanting early experiences so that they can get life off to a very fast start, and often in their sensitivity, in their wanting to be over here, and in the larger part of them being over here, but in their environment and what they've been trained to, sort of keeping them vibrating over here, it's a torturous tug of war that goes on inside of them, and they turn to all kinds of things to sort of numb that discomfort. And so what we're really getting at here, and the basis that we want to begin with, is you have to begin to view this subject as we view every subject. You have to decide this isn't about an action journey, this is about a vibrational journey. And so when you say, well, I know what to do relative to cancer, or I know what to do relative to finances, we say it's exactly the same thing. You have to start reaching for better feeling thoughts. You have to stop needing to fill the void. In other words, all right, let's start at another place and we'll come back around there. Okay. When you introduce, so we are going to begin again. When you are having an experience that is, for whatever reason, by your standards, not pleasing to you, and it's been going on long enough that you've got this tug of war going on. And you discover the mind-numbing, Novocaine in your fingertips sort of quality of alcohol or drugs or whatever it is. And you feel that momentary relief because of the diffusion of the focus that it causes. In other words, you're just not focusing as clearly, and so the tug of war is not as constant.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've introduced a substance to your body that it didn't know about. It wasn't used to it. But your body, all of these trillions of cells in your body are very responsive and always in the state of bringing themselves and thus the collective them, which is you, into alignment. And so the moment that your body senses the intake, it goes to work in the compensating it begins to do. Your body is a veritable chemical factory. And so it goes to work to compensate, to bring alignment under these conditions and these conditions and these conditions. In other words, the cells of your body don't need this seminar. The cells of your body do this all day, every day. Find alignment, find alignment, find alignment. Produce whatever is necessary for the alignment. So what happens in the compensating for the sugar that you are describing, or the alcohol, or the drugs, or anything that in the beginning is foreign to this system, in the compensating for it, there is this sort of army of cells that goes to work on that, and that compensating for what you have given your body translates to you mentally as a craving. If you could ask someone to just tie you to a tree where you did not have access to more ingestion in 3 days, it would have worked its way through your system, and that calling from the cells would subside. But it doesn't necessarily mean you wouldn't want something else again, because if you haven't, as we talked about yesterday, if you have not dealt with the vibrational imbalance, then you haven't found the cause. So the cure would be just don't give it to your body for 3 days, and your body will stop asking. The diminishment will be extraordinary. But if you haven't cleaned up the vibration at the same time, then that would be the reason that you would start it again. So our encouragement would be to, while you are still ingesting whatever the substance is, do your best to close that vibrational gap. And the tricky thing about that is that while you are utilizing the drug, even the one that's been prescribed by someone, your abilities to acknowledge the vibrational difference would be impaired.
Yes.
That's why they want to hook you up to a contraption that can tell you that.
Yes.
So as you then, even though you are still ingesting whatever it is, as you are working to bring yourself into vibrational alignment and you accomplish it, once you are feeling better about that, then that's when we would encourage chaining yourself to the tree and getting the stuff out of your system, and now you would have both avenues, both parts of it, the cellular craving and the emotional reason for the addiction would have worked its way through you. There's no simple way about this, but you see what's happened is as people live life, let's talk about people in terms of just being people, not in terms of being addicted to something for a moment. Let's talk about all of you, because you're all the same whether you've been given the label of addiction or not.
Okay.
And how you are the same is that you're living life which has caused you to be more than you're letting yourself be. And the addicted person is just someone who took that harder. The addicted person is just someone who felt more pain in that discord, which means it was a more sensitive person, or it was a person that life caused them to want more sooner. In other words, the gap is just broader. We talked about it several times, that if you are in your car and you're going 100 miles an hour and you hit a tree, it's a bigger problem than if you're going 5 miles an hour and you hit a tree. And so we're still talking about this gap, you see. So the answer to everything, we're sorry to disappoint you over and over again with our only one answer, but our only one answer is you have to recognize that everything that you feel and everything that comes to you, everything about your point of attraction, everything about your life, everything about everything that means anything to you is about that gap over which you have total control. And so if we were were standing in your physical shoes, we wouldn't be living life trying to sign contracts first. We wouldn't be living life trying to come to agreements with lovers or with partners. We wouldn't be an action-oriented person at all. Would be an energy-aligning person. Would be a person seeking bliss. Would be looking for the thought that feels better. Would be looking for the positive aspects. Would be looking for reasons to appreciate. Would be basking. We would train ourselves to be the most basking, looking for good-feeling things that we could possibly find. But in the meantime, and if we had met you on the first day of your experience and you had trusted us the way you've come to trust us now, this would be easy dialogue for you to hear. And you'd say, all right, and off you'd go, and you'd remember that. But we didn't meet you anywhere close to the first day of your experience. We've met you after you've developed these patterns of thought. So now we say, no problem, you've got patterns of thought. So instead of saying, I'm going to reach for the best feeling thought that I've ever found, I'm going to follow my bliss, sometimes you can't even get a whiff of bliss. In other words, you can't follow something if you're vibrationally very far apart from it. So we say, if you are in depression, follow your revenge. And if you are in revenge, we would say, follow your rage. And if you are in rage, we would say, follow your anger. And if you're in anger, we'd say, follow your not so angry. And if you were not so angry, we would say, follow your frustration, follow your hope, follow your belief, follow your knowing, follow your bliss, follow your appreciation. Don't try to make the gap all the way. Don't try to close it all at once. Just let your mantra be, today I'm going to reach for the best feeling thought I can find on any subject that appears to me to be even the slightest bit troubling. We do not want to talk to you about an addiction. We want to talk to you about your gap. We don't want to talk to you about your financial dilemma. We want to talk about your gap. We don't want to talk about the lover that you can't find. We want to talk about your gap, because all that stuff you want is over there waiting for you. You just got to close the gap, you see.
I am trying. I am.
Well, we thought yelling at you would help.
Oh.
Setting yourself up for a solution is, well, I did a good job of getting to where I am, and things are getting easier for me, and I'm figuring this out, and maybe I'll hear something that will give me some insight, and things are going so well for me in so many avenues of my life, and every day I get new insight that helps me a little more, and I'm feeling better and better and better and better, and it's hard for me to even remember how I once consistently felt. I know I've moved myself on the emotional scale dramatically, and the life that I'm living really reflects the improvement that I've made on that emotional scale. And I'm not running any races with anyone. I'm not being compared with anyone. And my gap is, no one's going to take it away. That stuff that I've been asking for, which is life improvement and better feeling emotions and abundance and good relationships and all of those things that I've been naturally asking for, are all lined up for me. And there's no worry that they'll go away, that somebody else will beat me to it. There's no competition. My source, who is aware of me infinitely and accurately and descriptively and constantly, is not unhappy with me or the least bit concerned that I'm not moving fast enough. There's no one from the source energy end of this that feels disapproval in me or disappointment in me or doesn't understand me. And the resources of the source are lining up so many things for me and feeding it to me incrementally, just in the way that I need it and can perceive it and get it. And when I think about it, I really don't even have a problem. I don't have a problem worth raising my hand and making a big thing about. Everything's really going well for me and continues to get clearer and clearer for me. All is well with me. I really like living this life, and I really like being in this body, and I'm so appreciative of my body. I love knowing that it's a chemical factory. I love knowing that it knows what to do. I've loved getting to know it over the years. I love the way it treats me. I love being in this body. I so appreciate the flexibility of it and the clarity of it and the continuity of it. I love this physical body, and I don't have a problem with my physical body. My body and I are very good friends, and my source energy and I are very good friends. I am a physically focused being. I'm source energy in a physical body. Everything about what I'm about is going very well. I love knowing that I'm always going to be progressing. I love that I can nitpick over some question because I'm wanting to fine-tune it more. I know that it's the nature of my being. I will never stop looking for something that I can turn my attention to. And it's logical that it would be my physical body because I take it nearly everywhere I go. I'm aware of my body. I perceive life through my body. I want to feel good in my body. I love this body. I'm so proud of this body. I love the intelligence of this body. I'm loving getting to know this body. I know that Source knows this body. I know that when I slumber, this body is realigned. I can feel the frequency of my body. I can feel that I'm an energy body. I like knowing that I'm a physical body, but I like knowing even more that I'm a vibrational body. I like knowing that I'm an energy body. I like knowing that Source is energy. I like knowing that I'm an extension of that. I like knowing when there's a little friction. I like knowing when there's a little contradiction. I like knowing when there's alignment. I love the feeling of alignment. I love the awareness when it's not so much in alignment. I love the feeling of awareness when it's not so much in alignment. I love the feeling of awareness when it's not so much in alignment. I don't care. It doesn't matter how far out of alignment I get because there's no threat, because I know what to do about coming back into alignment. I'm this fluid, flexible being. I don't have to feel protective about the thoughts that I think. I don't have anything in the world to worry about. I know too much to ever worry again. I know that I'm eternal. I know that I'm worthy. I know that I'm loved. I know that I can't get it wrong. I know that I'll never get it done. All is well with me. Good time for segment of the Church.
Yes. I feel great.
The question is regarding the subject of addictions, and I've listened to the CD that is specifically on that topic, but there's one question that I've come away with. It's been my professional and personal experience that one of the things that makes it difficult for people to break addictions is the physical withdrawal symptoms. On your CD about that topic, I've heard them say if you can just get through that, then it will be easier than anything that's really about that. But I'm wondering, how can one bypass or remove that piece of it to be free of addictions without experiencing the physical discomfort of the withdrawal process?
Well, there are two perspectives that it would be helpful for you to approach this subject from. First, anytime you introduce something to your magnificent physical apparatus, the trillions of intelligent cells become aware that this new whatever it is has been introduced, whether you ingest it or breathe it or shoot it or whatever. As you introduce this foreign substance, the cells of your body immediately, being the acclimators that they are, go to work on digesting it, so to speak, on coping with it, on dealing with it. And in doing so, they adapt to it, literally. In other words, it's like surviving under these conditions now. That's why if you're getting a kick from something, often you have to keep upping the amount of it that you give to your body, because your body does such a good job of acclimating that you don't get the same rush from it unless you introduce more and more. So your body adapts to whatever it is that you are giving it, and that adaptation actually translates to you as a sort of craving. And that's why you experience the withdrawal once you no longer give your body that. Now, there's something to be said about maybe winding down from it. That might make the withdrawal less. So there are two things that we want you to think about relative to the addictions. The first is that once you introduce it to your body, the cells of your body respond to it. So there is this, let's call it a cellular addiction, just for clarification. But there's also something else that's much more important to understand about the reason for it to begin with, and that is always, without exception, a vibrational imbalance. So what happens is people have got this vibration going on of who they really are, and this vibration going on of the thoughts that they're giving thought to now. So they've got that tug of war going on. And often in the ingesting or the introducing of something, there is a lessening of their awareness of that contradictory energy. And so there is this psychological addiction or this emotional addiction because there is a contradiction of energy going on that is unpleasant on so many levels of their being that often is soothed once something is introduced. Let's say that someone decides that they're going to cease an addiction, whether it's one that is legal or one that is not. And as they begin to no longer introduce that substance to their physical apparatus, then they begin having those withdrawals that you were talking about, which further goes to upset that vibrational balance that was out of whack to begin with. So we would get our ducks in a row. We would line up our energy before we began any physical withdrawal from anything. Line up the energy first. So many people, for most of their lives, don't understand how to bring themselves vibrationally into balance. And yet, we have never seen one person ever who had a successful withdrawal from addictions who did not understand how to bring themselves into vibrational alignment first. What we mean by that is anyone could just stop ingesting whatever it is that they've introduced to their bodies for 3 days, and in 3 days, we're not kidding you, it would be out of your system altogether. In 3 days, it's moved through, and that cellular craving is no longer an issue. But the psychological craving still is, because the reason that they wanted it to begin with, in order to soothe that feeling of contradictory energy, still exists. So if you don't tend to both of those, you've accomplished nothing. And the majority of people who are just using willpower in order to stop some sort of addiction, but have done nothing about aligning the energies, just keep having a whole new fresh reason that they're wanting to ingest it again. Helpful?
Yes.
So if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would first bring ourselves into vibrational alignment, and that's not a fast thing to do. And we're going to be bold here. We would say we would not make any effort to withdraw from the substance experience. We would put all of our attention toward lining up energy, because once you're addicted to something, it will be easier for you to line up your energy during the addiction than when you're trying to stop the addiction. We don't see anybody that has a successful experience of lining up energy while you're in the middle of withdrawal from things. They just work against each other. So stop beating up on yourself for doing this thing that somebody's convinced you is wrong, whoever it is you're counseling. Help them to understand that bringing themselves into vibrational alignment is first and foremost. And sometimes that takes days, sometimes it takes weeks. In other words, we don't think it would take anyone very long. If you could just accept that you are of non-physical energy first, that there is this duality of vibration going on within you, that law of attraction is responding to both of them, that it's natural that you know what you don't want so that you know what you do want, that the stream is flowing and that you feel better when you let yourself move in the direction of the stream. If you could get that across to yourself or to anyone, you could help them reach for the feeling of relief so that people are no longer beating up on themselves and holding those long resentments that they've had for so long. People got off-balanced earlier in their life, usually, on this vibrational misalignment, and the addiction is something that followed not too long after, and so much of this has been going on for a very long time. And to expect someone to cold turkey all of a sudden start going with the flow is illogical, and it's also illogical to expect someone to go cold turkey on the withdrawal of any of the substance as well. So if we were standing in your physical shoes and we had had a long-standing addiction, no matter what it was, we would be saying to ourselves today, I'm not going to stop this substance abuse or whatever it is that they're wanting to call it today. I'm going to work on bringing myself into vibrational alignment, which means I'm going to try to begin to see myself and my world through the eyes of Source, which means I'm going to be a little kinder to myself, and I'm going to beat up on myself a little less, and I'm going to stop looking for reasons to not like myself, and I'm going to let the way I feel train me into coming into alignment with who I am until I begin to love myself as the Source within me loves me. And once you've got that down, then the 3 days of withdrawal will be easy. Until then, don't even bother.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Let me interrupt for just a second. I stopped smoking about 40 years ago, and I always said it was the hardest thing I ever did. When my dad was dying, he asked me, he said, "Would you do me one favor, Jerry?" And I said, "Yeah." "What?" He said, "Stop smoking." I said, "Oh, that's easy. I've done that 1,000 times." And but anyway, when I finally decided to do it, I made a list of all the things that would be different in my life, all the things that would be improved in my life once I stopped smoking. And I had a list of about 60 items. Even those days I was traveling constantly, and I kept it over the visor of my car. And for a whole month, all I did was I just bring that and read that list over and read that list, even before I made a decision to go into what I was going to do to finally stop the physical smoking. Is that a form of alignment? idea of a form of alignment.
Well, it's interesting because if you recall the focus wheel, what you're talking about is a similar thing. In other words, you focused upon the positive aspects of what you were reaching for. You brought yourself into alignment energy-wise before you then offered the action or effort. And that's really what we're talking about. Everyone's putting their boat in the stream at a different place. In other words, everyone who's addicted to something is not depressed, and everyone who's addicted to something is not in frustration. In other words, you are where you are. Sometimes an addiction will begin from a psychological place, and the psychological place ceases in time, but the cellular calling is still in place. So there are so many variables. That's why you could not write a book and say, always do this. That's why the 12 steps are beneficial to some and not so beneficial to others. And so the rule of thumb is, with anything that you're wanting to accomplish, find vibrational alignment with the idea of it first, and then take the action that is inspired. And so the vibrational alignment that we are talking about all day, every day, we're talking about closing the gap between who you're allowing yourself to be and who you really are. And when you close that gap, oh, you feel ever so good. Well, the majority of people who are involved in addictions are trying to fill that void with the substance. They'll buy one more thing and bring it home. They get absolved in their work. There are all kinds of aholics that you are talking about, whether it's a workaholic or whether it's an alcoholic. So what we're wanting you to realize is the closing